Good afternoon and namaste everyone. Welcome to the fourth episode of Coca-Cola Presents Youth Dialogue by Glocal Pvt Limited. Today we are gathered at a very beautiful premises of Nami College, and it gives me an immense pleasure to welcome you all on this fourth episode of Coca-Cola Presents Youth Dialogue by Glocal Pvt Limited. So we are all gathered here, and today we are discussing on a very relevant topic, and that is climate change. Today, the topic of discussion is highlights of COP26 and the impact of climate extremes in Nepal. I am your moderator, Paudel, and I will be hosting today's panel discussion. And now I would like to take this moment to introduce our distinguished speakers with you all. Firstly, we have Mr. Manjeet Dhakal, who is the head of LDC support team at Climate Analytics. Welcome, sir, in our panel discussion. Next speaker, we have Mr. Basanta Paudel, who is the climate change adaptation planning expert. Welcome, sir, in this panel discussion. Likewise, we have Ms. Sneha Pandey, who is the climate diplomacy and policy analyst at Climate Analytics. Welcome, ma'am.
Critical environmental issues faced by the humanity today. It deals with many aspects of social, economic, political, and other different, it covers different global problems at local as well as regional state. As you know, the UK hosted the 26th UN conference COP26 in Glasgow, UK, and from 31st October to 13 November, and many Nepali delegates were part of this COP26. So today, out of our panelists, one person had attended COP26 and Mr. Dhakal was a part of that. So let's begin the panel from hearing from you, sir. So first, I would like to take this first question to you, sir. What was the first impression while you attended COP26 at Glasgow? So what were the climate agendas that were introduced from Nepal? Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. So, it's really good to have all this discussion. I don't know how much you all are familiar in terms of this international process of climate change. The discussion is about how can we solve this problem at the global level. If there is, like for example, if we discuss about a problem here in our country, or a river next to this college, which is polluted most of the time, if we gather and if we try to resolve that problem, like how can we make the situation better, then I think there are a lot of ideas that will come across. It will take some time to come up with one single approach in terms of taking decision, what exactly we should do to clean that river. That is in a context where we have a like-minded people who are interested to clean the environment. But these negotiations are in a context where there are around 200 countries. They come together with diverse interests. The diversity in terms of their understanding, ideology, diversity in terms of their development level. Countries, some are wealthy, countries which are still progressing, countries who are keen to help others, countries who think about themselves only, and depends on the political leader. The politician who wants to change the system within the short time, the opportunity they have, and the political leader who just want to remain in power for long. So in this diverse world, we gather in a human platform, trying to resolve the problem that we have seen in all our countries, the different kind of problem, the different impacts the climate change will face. So it's not that easy. So that's the reason we keep on getting blamed from everyone that progress is very slow and we have not been able to resolve this problem completely. But on an optimistic note, to some extent, we have made some progress, and the first success is bringing together these diverse countries in one platform and discussing on the one problem that the world is facing. So we are not there yet in terms of resolving this problem, but we have set our path in terms of how to resolve that problem. So it may sound a bit aesthetic when I say that we have a path. So on the content side, the temperature of this earth is rising rapidly. And it's rising because of the activities that human has done to this planet. So in the global process, we have made our path how to limit this temperature rise. And that means reducing the emissions. And when I say reducing the emissions, it means switching to the clean energy, controlling the forest fire, and so on, and changing our behaviors and so on. So the world is still progressing on this. Yeah, I'll stop here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. So we have been able to represent Nepal in that international conferences. But while we talk about climate change, we can see in our own country we have lots of climate issues that is visible and that is affecting the planet right now. So I would like to ask this question to Sneha, ma'am. So what are the climate issues that is visible here in Nepal that needs to be addressed? Thank you.
Thank you so much, first of all, for having me here. Again, I'm not really sure how familiar all of you are with climate change, but I just want to quickly touch on the basics. So we know that climate change is a long-term change in the weather patterns, and these changes manifest in short and long-term impacts that we know as slow onset events and extreme events. We're very familiar with some of them: landslides, floods. There are others like hurricanes and storms in tropical areas, so the impacts of climate change vary across the world depending on what region we live in. For Nepal, our geography is quite unique, so the impacts of climate change are very distinct in different regions as well. So impacts range from glacial lake outbursts, floods, to droughts, to floods and landslides. We don't have to look very far back in the future to understand this. Even in 2021, we've had some pretty damaging floods and landslides that we've heard of. We've had unseasonable rainfalls that have inundated lands and destroyed crops. We have over 150 people who are dead and missing, over 1,000 people who are displaced from their homelands, loss of infrastructure, houses, properties, and all of these add up over time. So these are just some of the few impacts we've seen just in 2021, and they are likely to increase in the future. Obviously, some of this has happened in the future, but climate change tends to exaggerate these phenomena. They increase the intensity and the frequency of such events. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for sharing your perspective. So we talk about different climate issues that are visible in Nepal, but there has to be certain adaptation and mitigation plans for Nepal. So I would like to ask Mr. Paudel, so what do you think that Nepal do for the climate adaptation and mitigation approach, since you are working in this for a number of years? So how can we respond to climate impacts seen in our country?
Thank you for the question. I would like to build up on what Sneha has recently explained about the impacts of climate change in Nepal. So it's a broad topography, agriculture-dependent economy, or resource-dependent economy. We are pretty vulnerable to climate change impacts, to seasonal changes that is happening around, the safety monsoon pattern, the extreme events that is already, like saturating the development gains that we have done so far. So what we need to do now for Nepal is the least emitter of greenhouse gases that is main responsible for this corporate problem, climate change. What we need to focus now is on building resilience, how to adapt to the changing climate, how to live with the changing climate so that we won't be able to, we will be able to also address the development challenges that the country is facing, and also at the same time we will be able to address the climate catastrophe that is like moving around and also hampering all the development that have been doing. For Nepal, since long Nepal is prioritizing climate adaptation in its policy framework, policy landscapes, and also in project and programmatic levels as well. If we have to stress more on the agenda of climate change, I would like to say adaptation is a priority for a country like Nepal. But then what we can do is like we need to learn from what is the best solution that has been practiced globally as well. What we want to do already developed from this fossil fuel intensive development approach or carbon intensive development approach. They are not saying that the way we develop our countries is wrong. So we need to learn from here, best practices or failure of the development. So what we can do is now, while also pursuing the adaptation priority, what we can do is moving on ahead with the goal of like less amateur countries or maintaining that target at the same level. In line with this, the country has produced a significant strategic country reports as well, like long-term strategy document, the National Adaptation Plan document, envisioning for up to 2050, and also the country has discussed that we will be achieving net zero by 2045, meaning that we will be like reducing no GHG emission in totality as well. So what we can do is like while also pursuing the dream of being a resilient country and building resilient societies, what we can do is also chart our development path towards a low carbon climate resilient development, and that's the best way to go ahead while we want to pursue the development activities in the country as well. So as an adaptation, like a guy working for quite a long time on adaptation, I would say that building on the steps working on resilience pathway, but that resilience pathway also has to have some sort of like low carbon climate resilience strategy as well. So I would like to say that we can have both at the time as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dhakal, the same thing like what are the steps that we can take to strengthen the climate action in terms of your experience as a youth? What can we do to strengthen climate action?
Thank you, sir. Thank you. I think the first thing that the youth can do in terms of taking climate action is to be informed about this issue. I see the group of very enthusiastic youth in that corner who keep on who provide a round of applause every time, more enthusiastically compared to this group. I don't know if you are well informed about this, you are very much interested, or I will come that side. Maybe I will ask a question about some of the ideas that were shared earlier. But I think the most important thing, and I'm very impressed. I don't know if the round of applause was only because you were so interested hearing all this discussion, or maybe you want us to leave this room very soon, so that you may have other engagement that you can engage. But I think the most important thing is about being informed about this. Basanta is here. At that time when we initiated the youth movement in Nepal back in 2005, 6, 7, it was very challenging. The youth movement on climate change in Nepal. The level of awareness was low, and it was very difficult to inform anyone about the climate change because it is not a very interesting topic for anyone. Yes, it was also very difficult to get a forum like this and talk with anyone. Even if you attend any event being organized in any 5-star hotel or any workshops anywhere, it's difficult to get a platform for the youth. Even if you raise a hand, then people will feel that, oh, there is youth, someone, they are best in terms of organizing a demonstration in the street rather than inviting in the workshop. But I think now things have changed a lot. There is a power that you have in your hand. How do you want to use it? A social media that you are much engaged. You don't need to take an appointment of maybe one of the senior officials or the minister or a politician or any celebrity. You can send them a message on the Twitter, you can interact with them. If you don't like their ideas, you can challenge them with their ideas, but I would always suggest that it's not necessary that you have to always be negative in the social media. There are a lot of things that you can do constructively. So I think compared to when we initiated the movement a decade earlier, things have changed a lot and a lot can be done. But I just want to conclude by saying that the most important thing that the youth can do is learn about this issue. And it's not like learning what is available in your curriculum, but things that are happening around. You all are wearing masks today, almost most of you. It is because of COVID, we know that. But it is also helping in other regions. Kathmandu is now one of the most polluted cities compared to many other cities. You may have been hearing the news about Delhi, the capital city of India, where the schools have been closed. And the peers like you in Delhi doesn't have a privilege now to come to school and do this type of interaction. They were locked in their buildings, in their house for the last couple of years because of COVID, and now they are locked because of air pollution. Yes? So I think it's very important to be informed about this. So the main source of air pollution that we are facing in this city, mainly because of petroleum burning and the industry, is the same thing that is also harming us in case of climate change. So just one example, I think you can engage an issue where you can help to resolve a local problem, and the issue where you can also help to resolve this global problem. Thank you.
As you said, there was not much awareness about climate issues through your initiation time when you started the Nepal for climate action. So my one question goes to Sneha ma'am. Like, what are your views on the importance of youth participation for diverse background to influence in policy making to take climate action? What should be the steps?
I think this question adds to a lot to what I was already talking about. The participation of youth is very important. We are in a very unique position right now. We are facing the consequences of a problem that we didn't really contribute to, and these problems are going to get worse as we get older. This is the dilemma of the youth. The people who created this problem may not even be alive then, but we will be, and so will our children and grandchildren. However, with that dilemma also comes a lot of strength. Youths we can be active, we are proactive, because we're not completely submerged in the system right now. The system of how all of this is run, the social and economic systems around us. We have the capacity and I think the strength to step back and kind of observe what changes are possible so we can think outside the box. And most importantly, I think we have the moral stance that the environment that we are leaving that the older people are leaving for us right now is the environment that they won't have to live with, but we will. Having said all of this, you bring a very good point about diversity. Diversity is very important. There are so many of us, even within this room, from like so many different backgrounds, with so many different stories. Most of us, I'm sure, have been impacted by climate change in one way or another. Nepal is quite vulnerable to climate change. There might be a few who don't feel like they've been impacted yet, and that's fine. But I think all of us have unique stories about how climate change impacts us, how it impacts our society, our communities, our economic systems, and we can bring those stories forward. We need to make the spaces for diverse people, for women and for minority youths to have that space to come forward with their stories. At a global level, this is a very powerful step that we can take, especially during COP26. There is a space for youths to speak up. So this is some place that youths can go out and interact and share their stories and tell your unique views and stories about how climate change has affected your community. This is on the advocacy front. I think the other way in which youth can be very useful or can make a difference is by also kind of reflecting on your own lifestyles a little bit and thinking where you can make the change as well. Whatever small changes you can make to make your life more sustainable, it adds up over time. So eventually you are living a sustainable lifestyle over the years. So take a few steps of whatever you think you can do to contribute to reducing the problem. Finally, I think in the long term, youths can just keep your head down, focus on your studies, get out there, become scientists, become civil society members who petition for the policies, for correct policies, or be policymakers yourself, and that way you can make the changes that are required to get the right policies in place to address climate change.
Ideas around, like there is a problem, but we can find the solution. So that's how we are working in terms of this climate field, right? So my next question is with Mr. Paudel. So can you share your experience working in this climate adaptation and mitigation field? Like, is it really tough to reach that level, to make climate action effective, or what is your experience regarding that?
Well, so first thing, what I would like to share here is it's been almost 11 years since we started a campaign in Nepal. I'll build on from this background story of Manjeet and myself. So we started a campaign in 2000, almost 2007, and in 2008 it was about climate action in the country with the pioneer youth movement, Nepal for climate action, and we together work on that. And now Dhakal is now leading the climate analytics in terms of negotiation and supporting the LDC countries in climate change negotiation for quite almost a decade. Has been engaged in that portfolio. And from building up from the youth activism, I'm also now working as a climate adaptation expert in some of the few entities here in Nepal as well. What I do, I already said that almost 0.4% of the global population is in Nepal. And then if you look from the global emission perspective, we only emit around 0.056% of the total global emissions, meaning that 100 times more of the emission is of greenhouse gases emitted by the developed countries, basically the United States, and even China is also leading on global emission as well. But then from the impacts of climate change perspective, we are always at the forefront of climate impacts. As Sneha already mentioned about the global glacial lake outburst floods, a recent study in 2020 revealed that there are 21 potentially dangerous glacial lakes in Nepal, which are at the verge of frost at any time, meaning that downstream lives and livelihoods will be swept away by those floods. Recently, we witnessed the Melon Sea havoc in this monsoon as well. So there has been a study ongoing about how such level of flood events is occurring in Melon Sea. Every year there used to be a small floods. Now it completely swept away. About 25 meters of the river level is swollen up, and the entire area of the Melon Sea Bazaar swept away by this flood. And very recently, since October 17, 2021 until October 25, there was massive post-monsoon rainfall. It was after 12 years, the time frame that such huge rainfall has occurred in the western part of Nepal, developing the entire Tarai belt and sweeping away the lives and livelihoods of the western part. So such kind of events are unfolding every year. And every year, such kind of extreme events is affecting the lives and livelihoods of the people. Who really doesn't contribute much in terms of this climate crisis, but then they are always bearing the impacts of climate change. So there is somehow injustice about how do we deal with this situation. For Nepal, that's why I said adapting to the changes that we have been already witnessing or observing or experiencing in our daily life, we need to adapt to it. We need to live at first. So for that, we need to have some sort of new technological innovations, some sort of new policy regulations or policy enactment as well, or setting up different institutional institutions so as to really address the climate adaptation perspective. So in terms of what we can do, we have like indigenous and traditional knowledge that have been practiced since long. Our elders, our parents have practiced such technologies. We need to explore such technologies which really help us to also live with the changing climate, and in the meantime also address the climate concerns like reducing emission and pursuing a path of low carbon emission development as well. So in a way, what we have been doing since long, we need to think from the climate science perspective and also change a little bit on it. Like what we have been doing is we have been building bridges, but now what we need to do is we need to study the hydrology of the river and how the river will be in the 2050 or 2030 or 2040 or 2050. So how will the river volume change? So considering that science perspective, we need to build the river, like I think maintain the height by more than 1 meter, or around to the 1 meter of the normal height. Or what we can do is like investing in generating new technologies so as to support the agricultural system. So here comes the question about like how do we do that? Because we are already a poor country in a way in terms of development index. So we don't have that much of finance to deal with the climate change. So in that context, what Nepal is preaching and what Nepal is also prioritizing is harnessing more climate finance from the developed countries as well, and within the mechanisms that have been established under the United Nations Convention on Climate Change. So Nepal is doing pretty much good work on that aspect. But while we are also already addressing the climate change through the adaptation interventions, our global initiatives, what we call is local adaptation plans for action. If we haven't heard about this, Nepal is championing since a decade now on this particular action, like localizing climate change adaptation into the local level and empowering women, empowering youths and children on climate change adaptation as well. But how long we adapt? Because the whole world is not coming together in terms of like really mitigating the greenhouse gases, even though there has been some sort of consensus about like we need to limit the temperature well below 2 degrees centigrade and maintain at least within the range of 1.5 degrees centigrade, and that 1.5 degrees centigrade is way high for Nepal, like Nepal. One study in around 2020, it says that if the global average temperature rise by 1.5 degrees centigrade, which is the scientists are saying that which will be occurring in the near future by 2030 to 2040 time frame. So Nepal will be experiencing around almost 2 degrees centigrade temperature rise in an average in the upper Himalayan region. So that is quite high for us. So because we have these snow-capped mountains, and for that reason the trees are coming in Nepal and our tourism is flourishing from that perspective as well. So if we lose those mountains, if we lose those snow-capped mountains, we will be losing our economy as well, and youths like you will be bearing the brunt of the climate change. So with that also I will ask, by 2050 youth will be around within the age of 40 or 45. So that time is a challenging time in terms of climate science as well. So scientists are saying that there will be more of like 1.3 to 1.8 degrees centigrade temperature rise in Nepal. That is quite much, and we will be experiencing a lot of problems in our country. So for us, we need to start from right now, building adaptive capacity of each of the individuals, each of the society, each of the sectors that will really help us to develop the country, and also pursue a pathway towards maintaining low carbon climate resilience, meaning that we invest more on renewable energy, and nowadays the government is also trying to focus more on like use more electricity because we have electricity surplus right now in the country. But our way of living is not helping us to do that way, because we are much more inclined towards fossil fuel intensive development. So in that context, what I'd like to add, Sneha has said and Manjeet has said, you step back, change the way you are living, because if you don't, then you have to bear the brunt of climate change, even though you haven't contributed to the real problem. So we need to act as a team on that aspect, and also get informed on the process, and also build our capacity in building resilience. That's what I would like to reiterate here. Thank you.
So we talked about a lot of things like how can we climate action. So since you shared a lot of things about climate adaptation and mitigation, my question is with Mr. Dhakal now. So is there a hope, like we will be able to address climate change before it's too late? Your perspective on that?
So and there are a lot of discussions going on. Many of you have already started considering how to resolve this problem. I guess so. So the question is whether we can resolve this problem or not. What do you all think? So the topic that we discussed just now here about climate change, and what we heard from the panel is the global temperature. The temperature in Nepal is also rising. We are facing a lot of impacts. So can we solve this problem? Do you think this is a problem? What is the problem? So the whole problem is about, it's little bit technical. It is about rising temperature and we need to reduce it. But it doesn't lead to that technical problem. It becomes economic problem because reducing emission means those sectors or those countries whose economy is based on petroleum product, maybe there are also other examples of petroleum product, they have to withdraw from that and move to clean energy. Yes, let us take an example that if there is an industry who gets energy by burning coal, then from the next year onwards, they need to find a solution to get clean energy fit to their systems. Obviously, it's difficult, it will take some time maybe, and there may be some policy changes. So, difficult to some extent in terms of economics. Then it became a political problem. There was one country in the past which was a developing country, and the emissions were low of those countries. And we keep on blaming the developed country, those wealthiest country in the western part, for creating this problem. And then after like a couple of decades, then other country appeared, whose emissions also keeps on rising. So now, a country like us, Nepal, who hasn't seen that level of development in the past, yes, so that's the reason we are called this developed country. Our emissions is very low because we did develop much, yes. But the context is that it will be very, very difficult for United States of America or Australia or India to backtrack because the economy is already based on fossil fuel. It's a carbon-intensive economy. It will take a lot of money for them to drive back. It's also difficult because of the political will. None of the politicians who come to the power to run the country for 5 years want to take that risk. But for a country like Nepal, whose economy is not based on carbon intensive, and when I say this word carbon intensive, it means we don't produce electricity because of by coal. Our electricity comes from hydropower, comparatively much cleaner. We haven't done much development, we don't have a huge industry. That's the reason we don't have a lot of emissions. So compared to those wealthiest countries, we don't have to backtrack. There is a technology in front of us, yes. You may have heard a dream shared by our politician about the railway that we can have from east to west and north to south. Even if our politician wished to bring a railway that we have seen in the Hindi link, maybe you may have watched Pandey, yes, where there is who is the hero in Pandey? Sneha, Ranveer Singh. So even if we cannot bring that kind of train where you will feed a coal in the engine. Now the train that will come, the technology has already advanced, yes. So we will get the electric train, which will not be made. So my point is that it is very easy for a country like Nepal, whose emissions is very low. So I am very optimistic we can make this change, but provided one condition. The youth in this country always have to keep an asking question. Yes, if our very friendly neighboring country, if I take an example of that train, if they wish to give us a train engine that has not been used in that country, and the train engine that was used in the Pandey train, if we take that train engine, then that's a problem. So we have to keep on asking questions: what kind of development that our countries will intervene. Recently, I'll just give one example. Basanta earlier said that our hydroelectricity is being surplus. We are producing more than what is required. Yes. However, a country has invested the millions building a petroleum pipeline. We should have used that investment to build electric charging stations for vehicles throughout the country. Yes. So the investment that the country has made in the petroleum pipeline, it may be very difficult to get the return. And it's an investment that we did make for the future generation. Is the investment that the politicians made to gain within the short term when they are in politics. So I just conclude by saying, be informed, engage, and practice, so that you must keep on asking questions. And to ask questions, you have to inform about the topic, you have to engage yourself. If you practice, then you can ask those questions.
Thank you, Dhakal. Now we are coming at the end of today's panel discussion. So lastly, before we leave this discussion, what would you like to suggest to the youth of our country? One word you just said, like climate action. So over to you, Dhakal.
So let me add on to what Basanta had already said about. If you ask me a question about how optimistic am I in terms of like whether the climate change will be addressed. So what we need to understand here is that climate change is a natural phenomenon. We need to understand this very clearly. It's a natural phenomenon. But now, if this climate change is being triggered, exacerbated by the anthropogenic activities, our activities, our way of doing economy, that is carbon-intensive economy, energy-intensive economy. So because of that, we emit more of carbon dioxide equivalent or the greenhouse gas in the atmosphere, and the earth temperature is rising, and that is creating a problem. So what we can do is like we can in a way create a balance of like how much we emit into the atmosphere. So that is the main concern, and that is what I have been reiterating about, like limiting the greenhouse gases atmosphere, or so that we will be having a balance, like a stable ecosystem, with stable temperature and climate. So to do that, if all the whole of nation, whole of the world come together and pursue a path of like low carbon intensive development, which is quite difficult as of now because each of the country heads are having dealing with the unemployment issues and economic crisis because of this COVID situation. So they are really fighting to fit their population in a way. So in this current situation, it's quite difficult for them. It is not that impossible. You see, there is a possibility what we can do in the future is pursue the low carbon economic development strategy through the investment in. So I'm hopeful that this within the investment convention and the talks or talk meeting, conference of parties meeting, we can find a solution towards that. And Paris Agreement is one of those instruments that will help us to reach that the goal of like maintaining temperature below 2 degrees centigrade, and also the limiting the greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. For now, what I would like to say to the youth, you guys here, see, so if you have heard of the young icon, I say, Greta Thunberg or Swedish International, see, led the youth movement throughout the world and also bring together millions of youth in one single platform to say or to demand for climate justice, to demand for something out of the cup, to demand for something out of the negotiation table for the future, not for the future of us, for the future of young generation like you. She demanded, she led that movement as well. So as a youth, what you can do is that you keep on asking questions for what I have been saying as well. You keep on asking questions to your leaders, political leaders. What kind of development you are expecting from the leaders? Green development or the development that is not more dependent upon the carbon-intensive economic gain? What kind of future would you like to see? Would you like to see sugar mountains or would you like to see black mountains without any snow? It's up to you how you ask the question. So that you need to get informed by yourself. You need to study more. You need to study what is going on around in the world in terms of climate crisis, in terms of other aspects of the solutions as well. So you keep on asking with the leaders, you get informed, you engage in the movement, you keep on asking, you keep on raising questions to your leaders, so that leaders will be, like in a way, has to make decisions for you guys, so that the future will be, in a way, conducive for your way of living. So, unite together, talk about the solutions, find the solutions, develop solutions within yourself, try to change a little bit your way of living, bring ideas together, talk to your friends, talk to your community people, talk to your leaders, and then you can find a solution. So also listen to people what they have been saying, listen to the leaders like Sultan talking about, all the leaders like that. There are prominent leaders in Nepal who have been leading the climate movement. I pray all that there is Umesh Bala from Nepal for Climate Action, Sneha Casey, those of the youth. They have been very vocal in terms of raising their voice. They have been very vocal in terms of raising the voice in the policy documents as well, and then influencing the policy environment in the country as well. So you keep on tracking those people, find those people in the Twitter, even in TikTok, even in Twitter, Instagram, and bring more ideas together and lead a society where you can really live happily in the future and also live in harmony with the nature. So keep engaging in this issue for quite a long time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and lastly, give your few words the conclusion one. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you so much. Climate change seems like a big problem, and it is in many ways. But I think collectively we can make a difference. We can make a difference by advocating for governments to hold polluting industries accountable. We can make a difference by changing our own lifestyles, and make a difference by studying hard, getting where you need to be, and making sure that you are there to make the right policies or help the government make the right policies. So the future is in your hands. Yeah, that's it. Thanks.
Thank you everyone for an insightful discussion. Today we had a very insightful discussion about COP26, also about the approaches that needs to be taken to for the climate change mitigation and adaptation, as well as the efforts that would help Nepal move towards climate resilient future and to ensure climate action. Here concludes our 4th episode of Coca-Cola Presents Youth Dialogue by Glocal Pvt Limited. I will be back with another new episode in another venue, and we'll have a very interesting discussion about other topics. So till then, stay tuned. You can follow us on our Facebook page and stay updated. Keep learning, keep skilling. Thank you so much. Skills to go for life.